Welcome to MSP Voice, the weekly show for MSPs by MSPs. Brought to you by CloudBerry, the #1 cross-platform cloud backup. Learn more at cloudberrylab.com. This is MSP Voice. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. This is episode number 50. Today's guest is Hank Holbrook with Bluesky Technology Solutions. They're interesting because they only provide one service, but they do it nationwide. So instead of providing IT services to small businesses in their area, they offer one service. They do it nationwide. Really great story from Hank, so stick around for the interview. We're going to do some housekeeping items here. So first up, MSP Voice is your source for all things MSP Voice for the podcast as well as the webinar series. We have the recording up there from the Mikey recording in terms of password management and stuff that they do, and specifically for MSPs. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. There are links here on the main site to do that. We've got a Facebook group that we post to, and of course, Twitter. Feel free to interact with us in any way you see fit. So let's jump into some news of the week. First up, I found this interesting. Our friends over at NinjaRMM, they've actually published a transition from break-fix to managed services and talking about which path is best for you. So Channel E2E, they've posted an excerpt here on their site with a link to it here in the show notes. But you can download the entire thing from NinjaRMM and go through it. I just thought it's a great resource. A lot of people I talk to are still doing a lot of break fix and want to get more into the managed services area. Sometimes, and I see it, people posting in the Facebook groups and on Reddit and stuff like that. Is like, how do I get from break fix to managed? NinjaRMM has provided you a guide. So definitely check this out if this is something that you're looking at, or even if you're doing MSP today. There might still be some useful tips and tricks in here. One thing they have included here at the end is an actual checklist of what you should be doing in order to transition from break fix into managed services. So definitely check that out. I think it's a great resource from NinjaRMM. Next up is another merger and acquisition. 3 managed security service providers merge. So MSSPs, there's a private equity firm, Sunstone Partners. They've acquired and merged 3 different MSSPs. So it's Sword and Shield, TerraVerde, and True Shield. They are all combining to create one company called Avertium. So Avertium is going to be nationwide. Apparently, the folks from Sword and Shield and True Shield, they'll be handling the east part of the U.S., while TerraVerde will handle the West Coast and the western part of the U.S. So look for interesting things around that. I think we'll hear more info as the year goes on in terms of what their plans are and what kind of services they plan to offer. But just something I thought people might be interested in knowing, especially if you're either using the services of either one of those 3 companies or not. But look for new things coming up from Avertium in the security space. Next up is some interesting news. Back in episode 33 with Bob Coppage, we talked a lot. Bob was a great guest. He was one of our top 10 guests for the year. And we talked about the fact that he had written a book, which was a CEO Survival Guide to Information Technology, which is really for the small business owner to understand why IT is important. But he mentioned on that episode that he was writing a new book, and that new book is now available. So the new book is called The MSP's Survival Guide to Co-Managed IT Services. So it's essentially now, this is for MSPs, and it goes through what you should be looking for if you want to offer what are called co-managed IT services. Essentially, instead of finding a company that has no IT department, is working with companies that do have an IT department. And I've read the first several chapters. Bob's writing style is great, just like he was in terms of a guest. It's an easy read. He brings in some humor into it as well. But definitely something to check out if you've ever thought of co-managed. You might be doing co-managed IT services today. You don't know it, or you didn't know what it was called. Definitely check the book out. It's on Amazon. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. And finally, our MSP Voice listener survey that closes at the end of this week. So please, if you haven't already, go take the survey. Let me know how I'm doing. Give us feedback. This is how we make the show better. is by hearing from you. So we've already got quite a bit of feedback in. I have a lot of the interviews already recorded, so the changes probably won't start coming until July. But just, fill it out now, and just know that in a couple of weeks, your feedback will be implemented. And, really, really do appreciate everyone who's taken the time to fill out the survey. And of course, you also get a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So with that, let's go ahead and get to the interview with Hank Holbrook from Bluesky Technology. Again, fun interview and really interesting business model that maybe some of you have not thought of. Have a great week. Hello and welcome. Today, I am pleased to be joined by Hank Holbrook with Bluesky Technologies, and I believe you're out of Rhode Island?
Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay, great. So, Hank, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that Bluesky does?
Sure. Well, I've been in the business for about 40 some odd years. Wow. I got started selling hardware and software. Before people thought about verticals, you kind of sold to anybody and everybody within a specific geography, which was Western Massachusetts and Connecticut.
Okay.
And from there, by the mid-'80s, verticals started developing, and I kind of gravitated towards healthcare. And since then, it's been primarily healthcare. Okay.
And, you've seen regulations come and go, I'm sure, and HIPAA and all that fun stuff.
You're right. I mean, the big deal back in the 80s was just being able to print a 1500 form, and there weren't any regulations. It was just the automation of a doctor's office. Today, there's a lot more to be concerned about, and that's, I think, one of the reasons, certainly, that your product and CloudBerry make the difference and give us the confidence to deliver cloud backup primarily to healthcare.
Okay, yeah, and that's, I was looking at your website, Bluesky Technologies. Most MSPs that I talk to, I go to their website and they talk about, we have full IT services for, the greater metro area of wherever it is they're located, and they have, basically, full range of service. But you specialize in just one.
That's it. Simple, and it makes us, we get along with everybody, so we can work with IT professionals around the country, we can work with software companies around the country, and we don't step on anybody's toes because they know we're not going to take their business away from them. So our model was to simply join or offer a service that probably wasn't available to the end user, especially Bluesky got started in 2005.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of cloud backup back then, and the products that we used back then were kludgy at best. But it certainly served a purpose, and it's gotten a lot better over the years.
Yeah. So instead of focusing on a particular geography, you focus on a particular technology, which is backup, cloud
Correct.
backup, and
Yes.
you do it pretty much nationwide. You're not just do Rhode Island. You do everywhere.
We do it across the country. We try to connect with software companies that have a customer base. And our concept is to show them that we can make their lives easier for their customer base when a disk drive goes bad or a virus contaminates their system. So we lighten the load of the tech support people who support the end user by providing a backup that lots of times people didn't have in the past.
Okay. And then you provide full monitoring of that and all those types of things so that
we do. We think of ourselves more as a concierge cloud backup service than the big guys out there. We'll watch, we'll call, we make sure that they get a backup, and if they don't, we'll call them and we fix it. So we're proactive, like a lot of MSPs are today. But for many of those practices that we serve, they're not used to having us call. They're used to finding the problem and having to figure it out.
Yeah. So it's like, when you call and you say, why didn't you run your backup last night? They're like, how do you know that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a great business model. We've made a lot of people happy over the years, and it's a little bit different than some of the other IT professionals that have to grind it out every day.
Yeah, but you still do focus on healthcare primarily as a vertical.
We do. We'll do basically anybody that wants us to back up, but a majority of our business, probably 85-90%, is healthcare, and they're because of the regulations and the need to protect the patient confidentiality and the backups. Cloud backup plays really well.
Okay, and we know the regulations, HIPAA and all those types of things, but are there any specialized applications, that you also focus on to make sure that those are backed up, that people may?
We don't. I mean, anything that's on a Windows machine is what we're backing up.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, we stick primarily within the vertical. So we'll go out and market to try to find as many different software companies that have customer bases out there, give them our pitch, and then we start trying to dial in the customers.
Okay. Understanding that you've been in this business for a while, and that you've specialized in a particular area, what kind of advice do you have for, other people that are out there looking to start in this general services realm, whether it's managed services or backup services or even, security services? Any tips and tricks that you have for them?
I think my biggest advice is to hook up with software companies and IT professionals who may not want to be bothered with cloud backup.
Okay.
And I think it's a wide landscape of people who don't want to do that. But when they know the benefits of what we provide, or anybody that is thinking about this type of business, then it's a great business model.
Okay. Now, what kind of other software do you use to run your business? I mean, I know you've got the cloud backup part. Is there other things? You probably don't utilize remote monitoring management. Do you still use a PSA or anything like that?
It's simple. We use QuickBooks for billing.
Okay.
And we use Outlook CRM. So from that, I'll tell you this, that over the last 40 some odd years, I've stayed out of being super technical or know the aspects of how we make our lives easier from the monitoring side. But I can tell you that we do our very best. We'll look at the backup logs every day. We find the reporting mechanisms that are in the software awesome to support our end users. And 9 times out of 10, we're able to get them back up and running real quick.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, there's, something else that comes up a lot in this industry is this idea of rebranding,
Yes.
Taking a software solution, putting your own brand on it, and then that's what you offer to your customers or your clients. And so, I know sometimes people look for that, others don't. But obviously, that's been a big help to you because you don't write the backup software. You just rebrand it.
We don't, and that was since 2005 we've used 4 different white label products, and by far where we are right now is like head and shoulders above everything else. And so with that, our identity, so that we don't have to deal with price competition, there's enough of that from some of the major players that we can fulfill, the expectations of a good, solid backup and recovery plan for the end user, without having to identify, well, gee, if it's XYZ company, I can get that for $5 less a month somewhere else.
Okay.
And that's really what we're trying to do, is to eliminate the price competition with a white label product, a good white label product.
Got it. And, I know, especially if there's people just starting out, they may not realize that there are a lot of products out there that are geared towards, the services industry that you can white label, make it your own, and sell it as your own.
Yeah, you can. And I think it's important that for those who are thinking about getting into this, it's not a matter of competing with the big guys. It's all about carving out your space.
Yeah.
And once you do carve out your space, you got a lot of runway.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't have to limit yourself to a geography, right? So
we don't. The beauty of living on the East Coast is that as the sun's setting in one section of the country and people are going home, if you feel like working later in the afternoon, you can continue marketing as the sun passes over to the Pacific side.
Yeah, so if you're a night person, it's great. If you're a morning person, you definitely don't want to do it from the West Coast.
No.
Or if you are a morning person, it's okay from the West Coast. But if you're not a morning person, trying to operate from the West Coast and being up at 4 a.m. and things like that can be difficult.
It sure can. And it's a business that you can really be anywhere and do. It's another model of you're not locked into having a physical space anywhere with the different cloud companies or places to park the data. Choice is a big thing today.
Yeah, and I'm doing this from my home, so that's where I work. So it's the cloud has really enabled us to get connected without having to be all in the same space.
Right. People aren't so interested. When we got started, or when I got started in the 80s, you had to have a physical presence in the communities that you're serving. Today, that's irrelevant.
Yeah. So great. Thinking about technologies now, just to shift gears a little bit, and it doesn't have to be about backup or what you do, but what technologies are you kind of most excited about today, whether it's work related or consumer? What do you see on the horizon that you're really interested in?
I think the cool thing is AI. There's, having watched some of the other videos and folks that have talked about it, AI is it's just amazing. And if you've been around long enough to think about what we sold back in the 80s, we'd sell 30 megabytes for $25,000. Now, what you pick up on an iPhone and what the iPhone or Android can do for you is it's astonishing. And it just you marvel in it every day. Each release gets better and better.
Yeah, my guest last week was talking about selling $12,000 word processors. And like you said, and then $50,000 discs, that maybe had 10 megabytes.
Exactly. So, we'd sell a screen for $3,000.
Yeah. That was in the day when computer repair meant something, because you had to repair it because you didn't want to spend another $3,000 or $10,000 to replace it. You had to repair it. So even the keyboards.
It was a great business, and in fact, that's part of why I think for us that Blue Sky works, is it's a reoccurring revenue model, and that's the beauty I think of anybody getting started. And getting back to some of your early questions about what would you advise somebody, the beauty of cloud backup is that it's reoccurring, and if you're doing a great job, hopefully you're adding more customers and losing less. The erosion is minimal.
Yeah.
And for someone who wants to build a future or a business with the amount of stuff that people are storing, when we got started, people would save maybe a couple gigs of content. Yeah. Today, 100 gigs or a terabyte or more. Yep. You can go into opportunities that we just couldn't think of 5 or 10 years ago.
Definitely. And, I know, a lot of listeners out there, it's all about the monthly recurring revenue, the MRR. And, the one thing about backup, which, I've worked for backup vendors now for several years, is that it's sticky.
Yes,
for
it
the
is.
most part, is once you get in the door, and they're like, okay, now they're using your service, then, it's not impossible to replace, don't get me wrong. But it's a sticky service, because it's the technology that you're using and providing, and they know they're safe. And especially if they have to do you have to do a recovery for them, and it works, and then, everyone's happy. So why would they want to change?
Exactly. One other piece of advice I'd give the listeners is that billing monthly rather than annual, so that people don't have a heart attack when it's time. Monthly bills don't seem to distress people as much as an annual bill.
No, even though they're sometimes 20% higher.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you would charge them if they're doing it annually. So, I see that all the time when I'm looking at a new subscription service. It's like, hey, it's $120, it's $100, a year. But if you want to go monthly, it's $10 to $15 a month. And it's like, well, that's more than the year price. So,
exactly.
Everyone does it. So, that's the beauty though, right? It is. We learned a lot from from Rent-A-Center and those companies where you can.
What a great model.
Yeah, they had it figured out a long time ago.
They sure did.
So, back to technologies though. Are there technologies that have you concerned? What are you worried about?
Ironically, the cloud business may or may not put Blue Sky out of business. the customers that we look at are those customers that have computer-based systems in their office and haven't gone to the cloud to put their billing or their practice management system in the cloud. Once they do that, then we're eliminating the, at least in our business, our prospects. So that's probably the scary part of it.
Yeah, well, good backup companies, understand that shift as well, and you will see an emergence, I believe, of technologies now that back up in the cloud, not to the cloud, because as the shift of those types of things go up there, I always say it's your data. You still need to protect it. Just because it's in this cloud somewhere doesn't mean they're protecting it. It's your data. Something happens to it, happens to that cloud, some sort of corruption, even, virus or ransomware, all those types of things, you still need to be able to get that data back.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, looking at cloud to cloud backup, I think is going to be the next emerging trend, probably over the next, 10 years as we see that shift.
But I'll also say that there is just a ton of legacy systems that are out there. And I think all of us, as we get a little bit older, once you know something, you really don't want to change. Yeah. And now that things have become so ingrained in a practice or in a doctor's office, they're not too likely to swap things out as they used to.
Yeah, I think you have some time before everything shifts to the cloud, because there's just a lot of things that have to happen.
That's for sure.
And that's the thing. Managed service provider as an industry, they're dealing with small businesses, and small businesses are, I don't want to say reluctant to change, but if it's not broke, why do I need to do something new? Why do I need to do something different? They don't have the budgets, that these large, multinational corporations have to do cloud first and all those types of things. So it's, I think you're safe for a while.
Thanks. I don't need that much more time, but
okay, well,
another 10 would be nice.
I think you're good. All right. Are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Sure.
Okay. So if you've listened before, this is easy. Just first thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
Sure.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Windows.
Amazon, Azure, or something else?
Amazon.
Okay. Local backups, cloud, or both?
Definitely both.
Okay. Now, virtualization, I know you don't necessarily work on people's IT to provide the backup, but should you always virtualize? For
sure. And it's a trend that I don't think anybody who sets up a machine today is not. So just about every machine that we're seeing that's new is virtualized.
Okay. And finally, which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Well, seeing that we only do one, it depends on how many yeses you got that day.
Okay. Great. Hank, before we go, any other insights you'd like to leave with the audience?
Practice makes perfect. So it's all about telemarketing, communicating with customer bases that are out there that people probably have ignored for years that just need a little bit of loving. Great
advice. I appreciate it. So Hank, thanks for being on today. Truly appreciate it. And hopefully maybe one of these days we'll get to meet in person.
That'd be great. See you in Boston sometime.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Doug.